So DC is attempting to reboot their movie universe, whatever they call it. And they now have James Gunn in charge, who did the Guardians of the Galaxy movies at Marvel. And he has a Superman movie coming out, I think in July?
Yeah, I saw the trailer.
I did too. I saw 2 trailers. What are your first impressions, I guess?
Clearly going for, at least from the titles and all the fonts and everything, the Richard Donner look.
Yeah, and I know Miss Tessmacher is a character in this one who was not from the comics. She was just from those movies.
I saw your favorite actor as Luthor this time.
Yeah, Nicholas Hoult, who looks like a child pretending to be an adult. I'm still not a fan, and I am extremely skeptical of how that's going to work.
I imagine the plot is going to involve current events, just seeing how confrontational the interview was between Superman and Lois Lane, so I imagine there's going to be questions of government involvement, citizenship, legal rights, all of that stuff in a Superman movie.
I didn't think about that. It did make me think of Batman v Superman and how they tried to go in the direction of, oh, Superman is dangerous and how are we going to control that and all that kind of thing, which I wasn't expecting because I thought this was going to be more of a comics style movie. And the thing is, the rest of it feels like it's trying to be more fantastical, I guess. So that interview scene did feel weird to me.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be so much along the lines of he's dangerous, but more along the lines of whose side is he on?
Which is fine. I mean, I don't know. I'm willing to give this movie a chance and see what they do. There's no way it could be worse than what they did already, but it's also not what I was hoping for so far.
We'll see.
And the fact that there were so many other characters besides Superman in the trailers, like Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl and whoever else.
I saw Mr. Terrific.
Yeah, of all characters. It's weird, and personally I think it might be a mistake to introduce so many characters in one movie like that. Characters that people aren't already familiar with from a mainstream audience perspective.
There's probably Marvel with their Fantastic Four movie. DC was like, oh, damn it, they got Mr. Fantastic. All right, throw Mr. Terrific into our movie.
Yeah, that must be it.
So what did you check out this month?
I watched Land of the Lost Season 1 from 1974. I know I talked about this at some point. I think it was when you talked about the Will Ferrell movie.
Correct.
Which is so terrible. The thing is, the original show is also terrible, just in a different way. I really like it for the ideas behind it and the show that it could have been and should have been if it wasn't so dumbed down to turn it into a stupid kids show. So you have a father and his 2 kids who get sucked into an interdimensional portal while on a camping trip, and they end up in the Land of the Lost, which over the course of the season, they learn more about what the world is and how it works, and they basically find out that it's like a pocket universe that was created by, I guess, a race of aliens for some reason. I don't think you ever find out why, but they have dinosaurs in there. It's almost like a nature preserve, it kind of seems like. And there are these sort of mechanical station things around that they refer to as pylons that have a bunch of crystals in them that control the environment, that kind of control the workings of this pocket universe. So, of course, they go in there and start messing with shit, and it screws up the weather, or it does whatever. And in different episodes, you have other people getting pulled in from portals. And then, of course, you have the Sleestaks, who are these humanoid bug lizard people. And there's one intelligent one named Enoch, who is one of the more interesting aspects of the show. I really like the reveal where he thinks that these Sleestaks that are in this world that he's also trapped in, he thinks they are his ancestors because they're so primitive, they don't speak, they barely have anything in the way of tools or anything, but he finds out that they are actually his descendants, and his race eventually devolves and completely loses all sense of civilization or anything. So it was a really cool idea. I probably mentioned this last time, but you had a lot of legitimate sci-fi writers on this show, and a bunch of Star Trek writers. You had DC Fontana, David Gerrold was the showrunner, who's best known for The Trouble with Tribbles. You had Larry Niven, Walter Koenig, who played Chekhov, wrote an episode. You had Theodore Sturgeon and his wife write episodes. Ben Bova wrote an episode. So it could have been a really good sci-fi show, and the ideas are there, but the execution is so bad there is not a single scene in this entire season that involves any kind of acting at all. These are all just people reading their lines in the stupidest way possible, giving the most aggravating performances ever. These are characters that you want to see die every second that they're on screen. And it doesn't help that their dialogue is so stupid. It doesn't help that they keep doing the dumbest possible things that you could think of in a situation. And the kids are constantly complaining about their chores. It's like, oh man, I have to go pick vegetables. It's like, do you want to eat today? Do you want to survive? Like, quit complaining. Oh man, it makes me so mad.
You're describing my life right now.
So it's not a good show. I would go so far as to say it's really bad. But for me, it's worth watching because of what it could have been, what you can see peeking out from behind the layer of shit that's smeared over everything. And you do get some cool stop motion dinosaurs. I think it was last month or maybe a couple months ago that I talked about Hua Chang. He does these stop motion dinosaurs in here and they're cool. But from a production standpoint, that's the only interesting thing about the show. I guess I would say that the composites of how they put the people in the shots is also interesting. It sometimes looks pretty good, especially for a TV show from the 70s. And the seasons of the show are pretty short. This one was only 17 episodes, and that's the longest season. So I am going to keep going. I've never watched seasons 2 or 3. I've seen a few episodes, but I've never gone past that. And I actually grew up with the 90s one, so I do intend to go on to that one when I finish this one. So in 1973, Robert Clouse directed Enter the Dragon, which co-starred Jim Kelly.
Yep.
In 1974, he did a movie with Jim Kelly called Black Belt Jones.
Yep.
Unfortunately, this is no Enter the Dragon. This is very much a blaxploitation movie, which is not a good or bad thing in itself, but it feels like it's relying so much on just it's black people and there's karate and that's it. There is a lot more humor in here than there is in Enter the Dragon. And some of it is funny, but some of it is also stupid. So you have this guy who's involved with the mob. He owes them money. So he decides he's going to try to force this karate school to give up their property so he can give it to the mob, so he can sell it to them. Something like that. So it's just him attacking the school over and over with his goons and them getting all beat up, and some people die over the course of the movie. You've got Scatman Crothers as one of the karate instructors, which was ridiculous.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And for being called Black Belt Jones, you would think that his character would stand out in some way. But all of these characters know karate, and they're all beating up the bad guys pretty much every step of the way. So it kind of undercuts his involvement. He doesn't do anything more important than anybody else. It's just that sometimes he's the one who happens to be involved with what's happening. The only thing that stands out about the movie is the way some of the action scenes are shot and edited. I did think some of it was interesting. I wouldn't necessarily say that it worked as well as they intended, but at least they were trying with some of that. And the big final battle takes place in a car wash where the soap is overflowing, so there's just bubbles all over the place and everybody's fighting in the bubbles. So it's ridiculous, but it was entertaining. I did like it. I'm not going to say that I didn't like it, but it's not particularly good. The actual fight scenes, in terms of the fighting, are not the best. Let me just put it that way.
So they did not reach epic proportions.
Unfortunately not.
Too bad.
And they also didn't have Bruce Lee come back from the grave or anything, so it was a missed opportunity.
And they've done that before.
Yeah. I watched another Doctor Who serial, which was called The Rescue. This is still season 2. This is 1965. This one was only 2 episodes. So in the previous one, one of the companions, the doctor's granddaughter, was left behind. So in here, they've got to replace her with somebody else, even though they still have the two adult companions, who I'm not sure why they are still with him. Like, why didn't they stay behind? Or what are they doing? Why don't they... It's unclear to me why they can't just get back home. Why they keep bouncing around to random places, but I don't know. I don't remember if maybe they said something's wrong with the TARDIS. In this one, they end up on an alien planet where there are a woman and a guy who are apparently being held prisoner by some kind of alien. And the female companion gets separated from the doctor and the other guy. I can't remember even what they're doing, what the doctor and the guy are doing. But this woman finds out that things are not quite what they seem with this alien that's supposedly controlling things here. And basically they have to try to escape. And the one girl prisoner becomes the new companion. She ends up going along with them. They're supposed to be stranded on this planet also, and they're waiting for rescue. But this alien is supposedly controlling things. So, I don't know. It was fine. It was okay. There's, of course, a twist behind what's really happening. It wasn't that interesting, but it wasn't bad. It was just another Doctor Who serial. I watched some of Maha Go Go Go, which is the show that was made into Speed Racer. This was from 1967 to 1968.
When you say made into Speed Racer, what does that mean? Like the animation is exactly the same?
Yes. The original Speed Racer was just this show dubbed and, Americanized.
Okay, so the animation is still quite poor.
Yes. Lots of reused shots, lots of padding things out by just having shots of cars driving for a long time. There's even one, it's mostly divided into multi-part storylines, and there's one storyline that involves this really long car. So every time it drives by, you have to wait for the entire car to go by. It's ridiculous. It's like a train almost. So I was originally intending to watch the whole thing, but after maybe like 12 episodes or so, I kind of said, all right, I get the gist. I can tell that nothing's really going to change over the course of the show. So I skipped ahead to the final 2-part storyline, and it didn't feel like I missed anything in between. And it also doesn't come to any kind of conclusion. It's just kind of over. So you've got Gol, whatever his name is, whose father is an inventor who invented this super high-tech car, and Gol drives the car in races and stuff. And of course, you always have bad guys involved in some way, and that's the show.
Aren't some of their cars cool with like gadgets and stuff?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, depends on your definition of cool. I did watch part of one of the stories that was right in the middle of the show, where Gol was stranded on an island that had like a giant gorilla and a giant spider on it and stuff, and didn't seem to involve driving. There was at least some stuff in the middle that kind of departed from the norm. But for the most part, it's just, here's another race. We have to race across the entire world and whatever. And sometimes they abandon their cars for boats or for planes and stuff. It's all different stuff, but it's all kind of based around the same gimmicky stuff. So, I don't know. It was fine. I can see why kids would have liked it back then, but it definitely did not hold my interest in the present.
For some reason, back in the 90s, I had a whole bunch of Speed Racer comics from Now. I used to read them so much.
Were they, like translated from Japanese comics, or were they actually English language comics?
I think they were English language comics, but I cannot be sure.
Okay. And it was based on a manga originally. I don't know how different the show might have been. I watched Hunters of the Golden Cobra from 1982.
That's a cool name.
Yeah, that's part of why I watched it. So this is coming right after Raiders of the Lost Ark, and this is an Italian movie that's trying to cash in on that, basically. It was the same director as Cannibal Apocalypse, which I talked about before, which I really liked.
That's with John Saxon, right?
Yeah. This one wasn't as good as that, but it was still reasonably entertaining. So, just like in Raiders, you have a search for a supernatural relic, which is the Golden Cobra. You have a scene where people are trapped in a pit of snakes and have to escape. You have people getting killed by blowguns fired from natives in the jungle. So, you have some very obvious Raiders stuff in there. The main character is an American. You've got, I wouldn't call him a sidekick, but there's like a secondary character who's a British guy who's kind of trying to help him, or I didn't pay super close attention to the plot, so I'm not sure what his actual role is, but somehow he's trying to help him. I don't know if they're working for the British government or something. I can't remember who was tasking them with trying to find this Cobra or why. It somehow involved the Japanese, too, because at the beginning of the movie, they're fighting the Japanese in World War II. So instead of the Nazis, you've got the Japanese. And the British guy is played by John Steiner. I talked about John Steiner when I talked about Sinbad of the Seven Seas and how he was a standout in that movie. And he is also a standout in this movie, but in a very different way. He plays a very different character. I didn't recognize him until I looked him up. In here, he has this... He's very eccentric, and he has this thing where every couple of lines... he'll just start laughing out of nowhere. And even like in the middle of a fight, he'll be getting beat up and he'll be like, oh, damn it. And then he'll just start laughing.
Is it the character laughing or is it the actor laughing?
It's the way he's playing the character. And it sounds weird, but it works. He kind of has like this carefree attitude of where he's just enjoying whatever's happening. And even the way he delivers his lines, it's almost kind of like he's playing the people around him somehow to try to just get amusement out of everything.
I mean, it sounds like you're describing Uncle Ghost.
Yeah. I could see a similarity there. I wouldn't have thought of that myself, but yes, I could see that. So he was definitely the highlight of the movie. Unfortunately, the main character, by comparison, is very boring. And John Steiner is not there for a big stretch toward the end. There is a bit more to the plot. There are a couple other characters that are also trying to get the Golden Cobra, and then it turns out that they aren't who they say they are. And there's even a weird thing with he has like I don't know if he thought it was a vision or something, but he sees this white girl in the jungle. I'm not even sure where they are. I think they're in Africa somewhere, maybe South America. I don't know, but he sees this girl and this is like right after he's gotten injured or poisoned or something. So he's not sure if he's hallucinating it, but it turns out that she looks exactly the same as this other girl. And there's a whole thing of like, what is that about? But it doesn't really come to anything interesting. And what I was really hoping for was some supernatural stuff, like at the end of Raiders, some cool special effects and stuff. And you do get some cool special effects because the ending does take place inside a volcano, but there wasn't anything supernatural about it, not that I can remember. So it was a little bit disappointing, but it was entertaining. It had a certain character to it, especially with John Steiner there. So I did enjoy it, but it's nothing to go out of your way for. I watched a movie that I've been waiting for a long time, The Primevals, which originally started filming back in 1994 and wasn't finished until 2023.
What?
So this is a movie that I've been following for a long time. This was a passion project for David Allen, who is a stop-motion animator. So it's kind of like a Mad God kind of situation in a way, where Phil Tippett started it a long time ago and then finally finished it.
Okay.
The thing is, David Allen died a long time ago. I think he died back in the 90s. So the movie never got finished, but finally it was going to be produced by Charles Band, and he finally got people together to finish it. So they have a corpse of a Yeti, but they want to capture a live one. And the Yetis in here look kind of like a cross between King Kong and they talk about how it has features of like cats and dogs and different animals that don't go together, and how they think it might be genetically engineered. So they go out to the Himalayas and they find out that there is a race of like lizard men aliens that have been living there in like an area that's warm for whatever reason. It's probably a volcano. I don't remember what they said. And for some reason they engineered these Yetis, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, if you can, then you should.
I guess that's one way of looking at it. For a movie that I waited so long for, this was a huge disappointment. The animation is really cool, and some of it was legitimately really, really good, like way better than I was expecting. The way it's used in the shots, where you have people in the same shot, or the camera will be in a place where you don't expect, or the camera will move in a certain way that you don't expect, and it matches everything, it looks really good. There are a few shots that are a little more obvious stop motion, but a lot of it looks really, really good.
So since it was spread out over so many years, is the animation consistent throughout the whole thing?
There are a few shots that are noticeably lower visual quality, which I assume is just because of the age, which made me surprised that so much of it looks as good as it does, in the sense that it looks very sharp, including the live action and stuff.
Were you streaming this? Was it on Blu-ray?
I watched it on Tubi. I was planning on buying the Blu-ray, but after watching it, I don't think I will. If it has some good bonus features, maybe I will. I'll look that up. But I wouldn't ever see myself watching the actual movie again. The problem is, it feels like a full moon movie from the 90s, but in the worst way possible, where it's really boring. Everything in between the stop motion shots, I do not care about at all. All the actors are really bad. All the characters are just stupid. They're very predictable, cliche, dumb characters. You've got Richard Band doing the music, and it feels really cheap. And most of the stop motion stuff doesn't really come in until the last third or quarter of the movie. And even then, it ends up being underwhelming. I expected more. There's just not really a lot that happens. And then it's just kind of over. And all the build up to get to it is really boring. So I hate that I can say that this movie was not worth the wait, but yeah, it was a big disappointment. Definitely Mad God was way more impressive and way more interesting. This one, in terms of the story, is more kind of my thing, I guess, but it just wasn't great. And the story itself was conceived by David Allen and co-written by Randy Cook, who's another effects guy. So maybe they needed somebody who was more of an actual writer to come in and work on it from that end.
It's always a risk you run with movies like that.
Yeah. And Phil Tippett was involved with this one at some point as well. I'm assuming he probably did some animation somewhere in there, but I don't know. And Jim Danforth was in the credits too. I don't know. There's a bunch of effects people that I'm a fan of involved, but just the movie itself wasn't good. The animation was really cool, but the movie wasn't good. And I'll give a brief Star Trek update. I'm about halfway through Voyager Season 1. Something that I didn't mention last time is the intro sequences to Voyager and Deep Space Nine are both really bad. They're really boring, really generic. It feels like they had no idea what to do, so they just stuck some random space shots together and shots of the ships flying around or whatever. Jerry Goldsmith does the theme to Voyager, but it is not memorable at all. I couldn't hear it right now if I tried. Like, I can't think of what it sounds like.
I agree with the Voyager thing, and actually came up with lyrics to the theme in my head that I would just sing to myself every time. I think it was, I'm trying to remember, who's that ship flying directly into the sun? It's Voyager. And then echoing like, it's Voyager.
Okay.
You'll get to all that stuff.
I'll try to hear that the next time I watch
Yeah.
it. Okay. And you compare that to The Next Generation or even the original Star Trek, and they have very energetic themes that get you excited for the show. These two shows do not, and it doesn't help to make me want to keep watching. Which isn't to say that I'm not enjoying it. I am enjoying it. But again, it's just not the kind of thing where I feel like oh man, I can't wait to get to the next episode. And the only other thing I'll add is I really like Robert Picardo as the holographic doctor. The writers use him to kind of make self-aware jokes sometimes, which actually work and are not stupid like they would be in some other shows. But it just makes the rest of the show, it makes the rest of the writing feel not as good, because the rest of the writing doesn't feel self-aware. So when they're making up stupid sci-fi crap, it still is just stupid sci-fi crap. Fake sci-fi crap. He's the only one that really stands out for me, just like Quark in Deep Space Nine. Although I like Sisko for sure the most out of all the captains so far, even more than Picard or Kirk. I would have said Picard if he wasn't written so inconsistently. But yeah, I really like Sisko. I thought I was going to like Janeway more than I do at this point. She's gotten a little bit kind of boring. All the characters already feel like they've kind of settled in a little too much. And they adjusted to being so far away from home way too quickly and way too easily. Nobody seems really, upset about it, which is weird.
I think I've said this before, but I would recommend you keep going with Voyager because they loosen up everything after that first season.
Okay, and I am going to keep going. I'm going to finish it, and I'm going to finish Deep Space Nine, or at least I say that right now. We'll see. And I'm almost caught up to where I left off in Deep Space Nine, so I'll go back to that and watch them in the order that they aired as much as I can. That's everything I watched. I read The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones, which was a horror novel from 2022. You have this group of 4 Native American guys who, back when they were younger, they slaughtered a herd of elk on some land that they were not supposed to be on, and one of the elk turned out to be pregnant, and they had a hard time killing it, and they killed the child and whatever. So in the present, the 4 of them they're all kind of doing their own things now. Some of them are split away from the others, and they all start encountering some kind of elk spirit thing that seems to be out for revenge. That's the book. That pretty much describes almost everything, but the way it's written, I expected there to be more. I thought it was going to be a deeper book than it turned out to be. It's really trying to be literary, and it definitely tries way too hard because there are parts of it that are written in really weird, awkward ways where I would go back and read it again and just say, like, yeah, why did you write it like that? That's weird. And it's entirely there to impress you with the way it's written. And it makes an impression, but it's not a good one. For the majority of the book, I was going along with it with all the weird stuff that would happen and the way characters would do things that didn't really make sense because I expected it all to coalesce into something more, and it didn't. By the end of the book, I was just reading it to finish it. It gets really ridiculous toward the end. The elk spirit thing, which you don't even really find out what it is, after it's killed a whole bunch of people, it then challenges the daughter of one of the guys that it was after to a basketball game. And you get an entire scene of her playing basketball with this evil elk spirit and whatever. And this is like the big climax of the book.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. It was way longer than it needed to be. Also, there were so many scenes that go on for so long. It was making me think of It because you have the flashbacks to when they were younger and it's a group of kids and all this. And there's even a scene where in It they have like the sweat lodge kind of scene where they learn what the creature is and that kind of thing. And the same thing happens in here. And I thought they were going to get some big revelation out of it, but it's a scene that's set up for a while, and then it goes on for literally like 7 chapters, and then it doesn't end up mattering at all. So it's just another example of so much unnecessary stuff added into this book that doesn't go anywhere. So big disappointment, and this is one that I went into it having the impression that this is a highly regarded book and a highly regarded author in that field right now. So I was very disappointed. I read The Forever War by Joe Haldeman, which is a sci-fi book from 1974. So Haldeman served in Vietnam, and when he came back, he found it difficult to readjust to the way society was changing, and he decided to write a book about it. So in the book, humanity is at war with this alien race, and it takes them so long to travel through space to all the various places where these fights are happening that because of time relativity and stuff, by the time they get somewhere and then they get back, for them only, like, let's say a few months have passed, but on Earth, decades have passed. And over the course of the book, it keeps jumping ahead like that, where they keep traveling through space and then more time has passed on Earth. And every time he comes back, it just gets more and more depressing, the way society changes.
39 is one of my favorite Queen songs. Are you familiar with that one?
No.
It was a Brian May song. It's about just that. Going through space and coming back, and everything having changed so much over the time displacement.
Okay. Well, that makes sense with his science background and everything.
Yeah.
So it has some really cool ideas. And Joe Haldeman also had I think a physics and an astronomy degree. So he knew what he was talking about. And the action scenes are really well written. Everything is super clear and super energetic. And they feel very realistic. And I especially like the way the main character is not important. There's nothing special about him. He's just a guy. He's the guy you happen to be following over the course of the book. But he's not the one who figures out how to defeat the aliens or whatever. There is at least one moment where he has an important thing that he does. But for the most part, he's just another soldier. And I even like the way there's only maybe 4 big action sequences in the book, I think. And in one of them, he gets incapacitated, right at the beginning, before it even happens. And everything else is just kind of over by the time he's, awake again. So it is a really good book, but it is extremely depressing. The way Earth changes and the way he doesn't fit in anymore and the way everybody that he knows keeps dying. And even his one, soulmate type character, his love interest, I guess. She gets separated from him, and I don't know. It's just it feels like he's just kind of going on autopilot after a while. And he even tries to get out of the military or try to get some easier jobs and stuff, but just a big part of it is the negativity toward the military and the way they kind of just manipulate things to whatever suits their ends. And that even comes in at the very end when you find out how the war started in the first place and why they're fighting. Because for most of the book, you don't really have all the information. But at the end, you get everything, and it's just ridiculous, but in a way that is intentional. There are 2 things, I guess I would say, that I didn't like about it. Number 1 is all the unnecessary... Well, it's not just unnecessary. It's I was wondering what the point of it was. There are so many sexual references. There's nothing explicit. There's no sex scenes in the book, but all the characters are constantly having sex with each other. They go to brothels, they have orgies, and there's all kinds of weird stuff. And it's why is this in here? What is the point? And I didn't understand it. And then the only other thing I didn't like was the very end of the book. After everything has been so depressing and so negative, there's almost kind of like a happy ending that doesn't feel like it fits. It feels a little too convenient. And it kind of, I wouldn't say it negates everything that came before it, but it definitely lessens it. It kind of made me think of Godzilla -1, where the girl's alive at the end. It felt like it would have been better without that. And he did write at least 2 sequels. I have not read those, but I will try to check them out. And then I've still been playing Fallout New Vegas, and I also started playing No Man's Sky again. I knew they were doing some more updates. They're always doing updates.
Which is good.
Yeah, they have added a lot of customizability to the gameplay experience, which is awesome, but I feel like there are a lot of other things a lot of similar things they could have added in that you could adjust that they didn't. Maybe because of the way the game is coded, it would be too difficult to do that, but it would definitely make it a lot better. So I have been playing it again, but I'm honestly already getting bored of it again. I get the impression that there are at least maybe 3 storylines kind of that you can follow, and I'm going to try to finish at least one of them. But it's not holding my interest as much anymore because the core game itself is still the same thing it always was, which is just go to a new planet and see what it's like. Go to a new planet and see what it's like. And that's cool, but it only goes so far. It only takes you so far. And especially when it takes so long to fly through black holes or to warp to another system or whatever. And it's you're going there just to see what the planets are like.
You are so spoiled.
Well, the problem is that the story itself is not engaging or engrossing or anything. It feels and I mean, originally there wasn't really much of a story at all. So it definitely feels underdeveloped and just it doesn't feel important when you're playing. It doesn't feel like you have any particular reason to, try to follow it. And it feels very generic. So clearly I still enjoy it, but it just needs a story. It needs more of a story. And that's everything I did this month. So what did you check out?
I watched the 4th volume of Love, Death, and Robots, which came out this year. And it's interesting because when the first volume of the show came out, it had a more novel and fresh feel. But that was 2019. And there have been a lot more shows just like it, some that we've talked about. So this show has to work harder to stand out more. And now it also has to compete with itself concerning how good some of the earlier season episodes were. And this is volume 4, and volume 3 came out 3 years ago. Overall, this one was decent, some definite misses, especially the opening episode. It was a weird choice. It was a Red Hot Chili Peppers music video, but they're all puppets. And the audience is also puppets. And when it started, I thought it was going to be the opening to some kind of story, but it was just a music video for one song, and that was it.
Interesting.
Yeah, probably not the best opening episode choice. I went through the whole season. I'm glad I did. There isn't one over 20 minutes. Most of them are actually under 15. So if one isn't really doing it for you, it won't be that long anyway. There's a good variety of different styles of animation and stuff. On the opposite end, this was not my choice, just getting that out there, but I watched The Flintstones from 1994. Which is a live-action adaptation of a 1960s cartoon that I have vague memories of seeing reruns on Cartoon Network back in the 90s. Are younger generations even aware of the Flintstones from a pop culture standpoint?
That's a good question. I doubt it at this point.
Me too, unless, they're still making those vitamins, but then even so, they're just characters on a bottle of vitamins.
Yeah.
Just knowing the cartoon was Hanna-Barbera in the 60s tells me most of what I need to know. Although, at the time, it was the first animated primetime show. So, good for them, I guess. And it was basically The Honeymooners, which they have admitted to. They said The Honeymooners was super popular. I think it's one of the greatest shows ever, so we just decided to do that.
It was at least different from what they were from most of their output. They were at least trying to do something different. But, I mean, that's not saying a whole lot.
And for some reason, somebody, probably Spielberg, decided to make a live-action version in the 1990s, and it is terrible.
Well, this was right after Jurassic Park. I remember everything was dinosaurs at the time. They were trying to do everything, like Super Mario Brothers even.
This movie aimed to recreate the Stone Age look of everything, and that's really the only good thing I can say about this movie. It captures the look of the cartoon very successfully. Unfortunately, everything else sucks. The story is all over the place and not very good. The gags get tiring after 5 minutes. And they felt the need to include all of the hallmarks of the show with Hanna-Barbera sound effects and everything. Any of the cast that could have been good were wasted. You got John Goodman, Elizabeth Perkins, Rick Moranis, Rosie O'Donnell, Kyle MacLachlan, Halle Berry. It was a harmless but exhausting movie. Very stupid. Wasted David Newman too. David Newman is a good composer, but the whole score is just the TV theme, and you don't need David Newman for that. Might as well pull in Richard Band. Would have been the same. And I know they made a second one too, but I don't think anybody came back.
I think it was a prequel. It was when they were younger.
And was that theatrical too?
I think so.
Man, only because it was Spielberg. I read DCeased. I'll have to put up a picture of the cover so you can see how it's actually spelled. The original run of this was just 2019, but sequels and spin-offs were released all the way up to 2023. And Marvel Zombies was, 10 years before this, which surprised me. I would have expected it to be much closer, just a kind of copy. Are you familiar with any of DCeased?
Just the concept, or, at least just the similarity to Marvel Zombies.
All right, tell me what you think you know.
People are zombies. That's all I know.
Okay, see, they're not actually zombies. They are the anti-living.
Oh, okay.
Because at the beginning, Darkseid is after the anti-life equation. So typical old school Darkseid. I don't even know what his deal is anymore. And knowing how DC likes to f with things, just to f with things, he's probably a good guy now. But in this, he's the bad guy. And he finds that the missing piece to the equation is in Cyborg. So he and Desaad torture and extract the equation piece from Cyborg. But the equation gets corrupted and starts infecting people, which turns them into zombies. And then Cyborg comes back to Earth. And because we live in modern times, man, the equations start spreading through Earth via the internet and screens. So insert your own addiction to technology comparison here. And the entire first half of the whole story is Tom Taylor, who I've never heard of before, but he wrote all of these. Do you know who Tom Taylor is?
No, but I'm also not that familiar with modern writers.
Yeah. He thought it would be really cool to see how some DC characters would kill other DC characters. And they're all very dramatic and full of tears. It felt very juvenile. And of course, whenever the survivors gain a hold of the situation and they sit down to rest, that's always when an up to then unseen superpowered character shows up and breaks their shit all over again. The spin-offs felt a little more interesting, mainly because they explored how non-main characters like Superman, Wonder Woman handle everything. There was one with a bunch of assassin villains teaming up, and another one with a bunch of magic people teaming up. And then there's a sequel run set years after the first run, and it gets out of control pretty quickly, eventually heavily involving the New Gods because that's the DC play when they need to make things bigger. John Constantine is also a pretty big part of it too, which was an interesting choice. And of course, the Phantom Stranger shows up, and I'm always a fan of the Phantom Stranger. Did you know that DC has kind of revealed who he actually is?
No, I know they had presented multiple possibilities before, but they never had concretely stated one of them.
I think they have now, which is such a bummer because one of my favorite aspects of that character was the fact that he lived up to his name.
Yeah, so who is he?
He's supposedly Judas.
Okay, I did hear that somewhere. Interesting.
I guess. Kind of ruins his character, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, the New Gods are all infected, including Darkseid. So he's even worse than before. And then he gets even worse. So Sinestro's around, with his yellow ring. And Darkseid's like, bark, or whatever. And he rips Sinestro's head off and takes his yellow ring. So now Darkseid, but also with a yellow ring. And all of the mother boxes have been corrupted. So they can only be used by the zombies. And they make, and I love how dumb this is, they don't make boom tubes anymore. What do you think they make?
Doom tubes.
Yes. Oh, so
Okay.
good. Did you guess or did you actually know that?
No, I guessed. As soon as you said that, it was obvious. Too good to let go by, I guess.
And the Spectre shows up, who is, a big force. And he fights an infected Mr. Mixelplick, even though I don't think that would be a fair fight at all. And Jim Corrigan dies. So the Spectre needs a new host. Why don't you guess who the new host is?
Is it Mr. Mixelplick?
No.
Is it the Phantom Stranger?
No. You're not going to get it.
Oh, man. Is it Jimmy Olsen?
No. You're close, though.
Is it Aunt Harriet?
You're getting even closer.
Is it Aunt May somehow?
No, it's Alfred. It's Alfred.
Oh, man. Okay.
I was surprised how close you got there.
Oh, man. Me too.
And to finish everything off, it turns out that the main antagonist behind everything is Erebus. So to solve the problem, Damian, who is now Batman because Alfred blew Bruce Wayne's head off with a shotgun or something, puts on a white bat suit and he infects himself with the life equation or something. So like the anti-life equation. And he goes inside of Erebus and blows himself up.
Okay. I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Well, number one is, this is only vaguely related, but the yellow rings, since Green Lantern's ring doesn't work against yellow, is there a color that the yellow rings don't work against?
I don't think so.
And what is the goal of these zombies?
To wipe out all life and the universe entirely? I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty deep. And like I said, the spin-offs were better written because all the craziest shit hadn't happened yet. And man, the main run, especially the ending, felt so fan-fiction-y. I guess entertaining is an appropriate description, but I would not recommend, spending a bunch of money on these. I read Contact from 1985, which is by Carl Sagan, and I have not read before. Have you read Contact?
I have not. I've never read anything by Carl Sagan.
Okay, well, after reading this, I'm going to go find more stuff that he wrote. I've seen the movie once, a long time ago. I don't really remember much other than a really cool shot with a mirror in a medicine cabinet or something.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the only thing I remember. I never finished it, though.
Probably going to check out the movie again, too. The book was really good. Plot-wise, a message comes in from a distant star, and the whole world gets it, and they work together to decode it, and they determine that it's instructions for building a machine. So they all build this machine, and a group of 5 people end up inside when it's activated. It's a pretty chunky book, but it went really quick. Carl Sagan is obviously a very smart dude, and it was really cool that he's a good writer. It was a really well-written book, and because he's so much on the science side, the science is there, and he explains it in a way that doesn't drift into feeling like a textbook, which is definitely one of his strengths. I mean, if you've ever seen Cosmos, I don't know, did you ever watch Cosmos?
Maybe like one episode.
Yeah, I'm going to check that out too, and that book. Even character-wise, the main character felt really well established, and Sagan did a good job of making her feel like a real person, even though the end got a little sappy. And even though the main force of the story is this machine and the message, they don't actually use it until 3/4 of the way through the book. It's such a small chunk of the book, which I was surprised at. It was also really, I don't know if pleased is the right word, with what happened when they got back. It was unexpected, but made sense. I really like this book. I think you should check it out.
Yeah, you're definitely selling me on it.
I played Banjo-Tooie from 2000, which is a Nintendo 64 sequel to Banjo-Kazooie. So get it, it's the second one, so it's Banjo-Tooie. They're both 3D platformers made by Rare, and Tooie is a huge expansion from Kazooie. This era, and this series especially, gets a lot of flack for falling into the collectathon era, but in my opinion, Banjo-Kazooie does not belong in that category. The peak of the collectathon era was definitely Donkey Kong 64, which people still praise the hell out of for some reason. Banjo-Tooie was pushing the collecting trend, but I don't think it really gets out of hand here. It gets close. But what really hurts Banjo-Tooie is the size. Every area is too spread out. They are often filled with confusing, maze-like layouts. Things look very similar all the time. There's too much unnecessary backtracking, sometimes to the point where I would realize I'd have to run all over the place yet again, and instead I would just say, well, I guess I'll just do that tomorrow and turn the game off. It's trying to be too grandiose when it really didn't need to be. Just because you can doesn't mean it's a good idea, unless
it's cloning a Yeti.
Yes, unless it's cloning a Yeti. Positives for this game, though, there's a ton of creativity and really neat ideas for the whole game. There's lots of little mini games. There's a pretty robust multiplayer mode. And because this is Rare, and GoldenEye had happened, there's multiple sections where you're in a first-person shooter mode. And that's part of the multiplayer, too, which is pretty fun. Good music, good mechanics, just too big. I can take this game in smaller chunks. The needless runaround becomes frustrating very quickly, but Rare knows how to make a solid product. And I played a 2023 game called Super Dungeon Maker. So Super Mario Maker was a thing, and people were pining for essentially the same thing, but for Zelda dungeons. So some developers decided to make it themselves with their own stuff. And I was really happy at the beginning when I booted this game up and started exploring. It has a lot of charm, and the bones are there, but I wish there was more freedom to create. Things are very limited. They're simple. It's a neat idea, but it feels like an early draft of something that is going to be expanded later. And there's also more than a couple of bugs, which is very frustrating. And looking at the reviews on Steam, it looks like nothing will be changing because I guess development has been concluded / abandoned. So that's a bummer. There was another game like this that was on my radar. I'll have to see where that one ended up. Because even in a bunch of the Steam reviews, people were like, go to this one instead. And that's everything I did this month. So I know you're a huge fan of celebrity culture and just keeping track of famous people.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
Well, my question was, what is the closest interaction you've had with somebody famous?
I saw Stan Lee, saw Summer Glau. Those were the 2 that I needed on my list. That was as far as my list went of who I wanted to see in person. I don't know, we talked to John Delancey that one time, if you can call that a conversation, which you can't.
God, what an asshole. So do you know anybody famous, though? Because I do. I actually knew them before they were famous, so I think that counts, right? Because I went to school. I was friends with Joseph Gordon-Levitt back in the day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, back when he was just, Joey Levitt. He's actually here right now. He's visiting from out of town. No, he seriously is.
Okay.
Hang on. Joe, they don't think you're here. Can you say something?
Please do not shoot me!
He's fine. It's all good. It's all good. Well, maybe Tom Hardy will call you back one day.
I mean, I've left enough messages telling him how much I hate his acting, so I don't know.
I mean, it probably also doesn't help that you keep calling him doing a fake British accent because you think that's the only way he'll understand you.
I mean, I can't understand him, so, I figured maybe it would work the other way around.
Well, for those of you who don't know, Tom Hardy, in everyday life, as much as he can, wears the Bane mask and talks like that. All right, well, thanks for watching. Another month down.
So if you're a fan of Joseph Gordon-Levitt or Tom Hardy, make sure you like and subscribe. They would appreciate it.
Maybe their life depends on it. All right, are we going to get flagged for that?
I don't know.